A grieving Victorian woman has been dealt a brutal blow after finding her late father's home looted and trashed by strangers. The twist claims a pro-squatters politician led the looters right to her door.
I'm not rich. I spent 4 years renovating it and every penny basically to bring it to a stage where I could live in it, and then my circumstances changed.
Late last year, Carol, who doesn't want to be identified, went to check in on the home of her late father, a property she inherited after he passed in 2007, revealing to the ABC,
I tried my key and it didn't open, and then I realised there was a blind in one room that I never put down, and that there was a security camera over the garage, not mine. My heart was in my throat and I was panicking.
Her home had been broken into, the locks changed, Carol's belongings cleared out by strangers.
It was the stuff that belonged to my father that had the greatest impact. It made me feel very unsafe, violated, just really vulnerable.
Carol hadn't lived in the property for more than 10 years because she'd been caring for her ailing mum. She used to visit the vacant home every few weeks, but after her mother passed, she hadn't been for more than 2 months. During that time, Carol's Melbourne address was shared online. The post viewed more than 40,000 times.
16 years of time went by without an incident. I don't believe it's a coincidence.
The person behind the post, Purple Pingers, aka Jordan Vandenlam.
I used to get rich people hoarding empty houses during a housing crisis.
A lawyer turned content creator turned federal election candidate who's been taking on the nation's housing crisis, first by exposing bad rentals, then by helping people find vacant homes to squat in by posting the addresses on a public database.
Fun fact, squatting in Australia is not necessarily illegal.
The law is fairly clear. If you are on the property of another person, you leave yourself open to a trespass charge.
Dubbed by some as the Robin Hood of renters, Purple Pingers has amassed a legion of fans. But are his latest actions less hero, more villain?
I think he's a disgrace. It's quite clearly just reprehensible, self-indulgent behaviour.
He's advocating for the rights of people who have very few rights, so you can understand that from a moral point of view, but they need to be finding out who owns the property and getting their consent.
I've tried really hard to separate the memory from the item. I no longer have the radiogram. I no longer have the 3 swivel chairs that I used to sit in and swing around in, but I have the memory of those things.
Victorian Socialist Senate candidate Jordan Vandenlam joins us now. Jordan, thank you for joining us. How do you feel when you hear those words from Carol?
Yeah, I think I feel very sorry that her belongings were taken. But I also think about the fact that every 4 days a young person experiencing homelessness dies in this country, even though there are hundreds of thousands of empty homes available for them to live in, and they die because they don't have access to housing. And our government sits there doing nothing about it.
So is something like Carol collateral damage? Like, if you had your time again, would you still post Carol's address?
Yeah, I'd have a think about it, I guess. But I guess if we look to the facts about it, it's a house that was empty for 17 years, and Carol had safe housing, and she obviously empathises with the people who don't have access to housing. It's a tough one. It's very much a tough one.
But they're only some of the facts. I mean, the other relevant facts, as we just saw, the reason that house was empty for so long, she was having a ailing mum that she was looking after all that time. I mean, to just say it was empty.
It was. But she visited it every 2 months to make sure that she didn't have to pay vacant residential land tax and that her insurance didn't lapse on it. And then she didn't visit it for like years at the end.
But if she's looking after her ailing mum for a lot of that time, and she's entitled to try to minimise her insurance payments or whatever. If she's,
absolutely.
So to just say it was just an empty house, that's a mischaracterisation of the full picture, isn't it?
I mean, like it was an empty house.
Yeah, but that's partially the truth. There's more to the story. You accept that, sure?
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is an incredible outlier. This is like I've been doing this for a long time. This is the first time this has happened. That's for sure.
Yeah, I understand that. Do you, when you post an address, or say you pass one on privately. Do you then check up to see what's happened to that house?
Generally, so the addresses that I post are different to the ones that I pass on privately.
Yeah.
The addresses that I post are generally the ones that I personally think no one would live in, because I probably wouldn't live there, and they're more to kind of draw attention to the fact that, hey, these places exist, they're near you, they're your neighbours are leaving houses empty while people are living on the street and sleeping rough, and the ones that are distributed privately are not those.
Right, but so you don't then follow up to see what's happened, what's become of these places?
Of the private ones, more generally speaking, yes, but the public ones, less so.
So in a case like this, you had no idea what was going on?
No, absolutely
after.
not.
You just post this thing, walk away, and the circumstances are what they are?
Yeah, because they're generally just houses falling down on the side of the road somewhere.
Okay, do you do it? I mean, this clearly wasn't that.
Yeah, this is absolutely not the case.
Yeah, and also she'd just done a renovation. So it clearly wasn't, unless it was a really bad renovation, it was perfectly livable.
Are we saying it's livable?
Well, I assume so. I mean, unless she's renovating in a way that makes it unlivable. So I guess because you're saying these are terrible houses that no one want to live in except the most desperate. Well, that doesn't fit these facts, does it?
Well, I would say, yes, the person who submitted it had seen this house in their neighbourhood. They'd been living there 10 years. They saw it empty for 10 years while they lived there. They assumed no one was living there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the condition of the house.
Yeah, but this is the person's neighbour that submitted it.
Yeah, but do they visit the house? Do they know what the condition of the house is?
More than I do.
Right, yeah, OK, but this is the bit I'm a bit confused about, because some of what you're doing is predicated on the idea that these are basically abandoned houses and no one would want to live in them anyway.
Yeah. The public ones.
Right. Yeah. This isn't that case. You've just said you relied on a neighbour who, we don't know, probably never saw the inside of the house.
Yeah.
So this doesn't actually match your own description of what you say you're doing, isn't that?
You can check it up on the Street View. You can do a bunch of things. Obviously, I can't visit every single house, which is unfortunate. I am just one person, and I'm doing this because I see that there are hundreds of thousands of empty homes in this country, and there are far fewer people than that sleeping rough, dying on the street because they don't have access to housing. And I'm just literally here trying to make sure that people have things that they need because I care about them. That's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, there might be better ways to do it, and I would love the government to do that and not me. But I have, I'm not funded to do this stuff. I'm just trying to help people who are desperate and need houses.
So what are the better ways to do it?
Well, that's not a question for me. That's a question for the government. It's not my responsibility to make sure that the government's job is done and that everyone is housed. However, if the government doesn't do that, I want to step in and do what I can to make sure that people have a roof over their heads while there are empty homes.
Well, with respect, it wasn't your job when you were purple pingers, but it is your job when you're a Senate candidate.
Yeah, definitely.
For the Victorian Socialists in an upcoming election.
If I'm not elected...
Yeah, you're running. I mean,
absolutely. I've got heaps more ideas if in government, absolutely. There's things as policy solutions that we can put forward and that we have. Okay. And that no one's asked us about.
Well, we've never had she just did, though. That's my point. That's why
sorry, I didn't realise you were asking for policy solutions. Well, I thought you meant about my list kind of thing. Heaps. We could build, enough public housing. We could start a public builder, build 1 million public housing units in 10 years, and that would drastically reduce the cost of housing in this country. We could implement, mandatory minimum rent standards across the country. We could introduce, a national rental inspectorate that controls rents to make sure everything is affordable while we keep building public housing massively so that everyone has a place to live. We could also audit the empty homes, have an actual government agency to audit these empty homes once a year or once every 2 years and make sure that if homes are empty while people don't have homes, that they are distributed equally across society to the people that need them. There's heaps that we could do.
All right, Jordan, thanks for your time.